Okay, so hello everyone. Myself Neha Karmakar, and I am a subject matter expert of biology. So, students, today I will teach you biology for NEET 2021, and the chapter name is Human Physiology in Breathings and Exchange of Gases. So, at first, I highly recommended to all of you that follows NCERT books for NEET and JEE Mains or JEE Advance. Before exam, must go through for free online tests and reference books. Practice all MCQ from NCERT books. Okay? Okay, so let's start. Breathing and exchange of gases. Okay, so I am also follow NCERT books, and so let's get started the recording at first, and then so as you have read earlier, oxygen O2 is utilized by the organism to indirectly break down nutrient molecules like glucose and the derive energy for performing various activities. Carbon dioxide CO2, which is harmful, is also released during the above catabolic reactions. It is therefore evident that O2 has to be continuously provided to the cells, and CO2 produced by these cells have to be released out. This process of exchange of O2 from the atmosphere with CO2 produced by the cells is called breathing. What is called breathing? So what is breathing? This is the process of exchange of O2 from the atmosphere. O2 from the atmosphere with CO2 produced by the cells is called breathing, and commonly known as respiration. Okay, place your hands on your chest. You can feel the chest moving up and down, right? So you know that is due to for breathing. So how do we breathe? That's a important question of in this area. So the respiratory organs, the mechanism of breathing, are described in the following section of this chapter. Okay, so respiratory organs. What is respiratory organs? Here you can see mechanism of breathing vary among different groups of animals depending mainly on their habitats and levels of organizations. So one thing, this is important for MCQs, that a mechanism of breathing vary among different groups of animals depending mainly on their habitats. Okay, so I highlighted these things. Lower invertebrates like sponges, coelentrates, flatworms, etc. exchange O2 with CO2 by simple diffusion over their interior body surface. Earthworms use their moist cuticles, and insects have a network of tubes, which is called tracheal tubes. Okay, wait a minute. Let me put highlighter. Yeah, tracheal tubes. Here one thing is important, that earthworms use their most cuticles, and insects have a network of tubes which is called tracheal tubes to transfer atmospheric air within the body. Spherical vascularized structures called gills is also important, are used by most of the aquatic arthropods and molluscs, whereas vascularized bags called lungs are used by the terrestrial forms for the exchange of gases. Among vertebrates, fishes use gills, whereas reptiles, birds, and mammals respire through lungs. you know already. Amphibians like frogs can respire through their most skin also, and mammals have a well developed respiratory system. Next, human respiratory system. Okay, let's get to the point. We have a pair of external nostrils opening out above the upper lips, right? It leads to a nasal chamber through the nasal passage. It leads to a nasal chamber through the nasal passage. The nasal chamber opens into the pharynx. The nasal chamber opens into the pharynx. So, how to open the nasal chamber? Into the pharynx. What is pharynx? Pharynx is a portion of which is the common passage for food and air. Okay, it is the common passage for food and air. The pharynx opens through the larynx region into the trachea. The pharynx opens through the larynx region into the trachea. Okay. Okay. Larynx is a cartilaginous box. Larynx is a cartilaginous box. So one thing is important here, which is helps in sound production. And hence called the sound box. During swallowing, glottis can be covered by a thin elastic cartilaginous flap called epiglottis. Okay, so one thing here is important, that during swallowing, when we swallow on eating time, then glottis can be covered by a thin elastic cartilaginous flap, so which is called epiglottis. Okay, so also come glottis and epiglottis. Okay, to prevent the entry of food into the larynx, trachea is a straight tube extended up to the mid-thoracic cavity. Which divides at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra into a right and left primary bronchi So mid-thoracic cavity which divides at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra into a right and left primary bronchi. Each bronchi undergoes repeated division to form the secondary and tertiary bronchi and bronchioles ending up in very thin terminal bronchioles. The trachea, primary, secondary and tertiary bronchi and initial bronchioles are supported by incomplete cartilaginous rings. Each terminal bronchioles gives rise to a number of very thin, irregular walled, vascularized bag-like structures called alveoli. Okay, so vascularized bag-like structure called dash. So there you must write alveoli. Okay, vascularized bag-like structures called alveoli. The branching network of bronchioles and alveoli comprises the lungs. We have two lungs which are covered by a double layered pleura with pleural fluid between them. So which type of fluid between them? We have two lungs, right? So which are covered by a double layer pleura with pleural fluid between them. So one thing here is important question will also become NEET 2021. Okay, so be careful for this, and you highlighted guys these things. Okay, I have also highlighted. So pleural fluid between them, it reduces friction on the lung surface. What it reduces? It reduces friction on the lung surface. The outer pleural membrane is in close contact with the thoracic lining, whereas the inner pleural membrane is contact with the lung surface. The part starting with the external nostrils up to the terminal bronchioles constitute the conducting part, whereas the alveoli and their ducts from the respiratory or exchange part of the respiratory system. The conducting part transports the atmospheric air to the alveoli, clears it from foreign particles, humidifies, and also brings the air to body temperature. Exchange part is the site of actual diffusion of O2 and CO2 between blood and atmospheric air. The lungs are situated in the thoracic chamber, which is anatomically an airtight chamber. The thoracic chamber is formed dorsally by the vertebral column, ventrally by the sternum, laterally by the ribs, and on the lower side by the dome shaped diagram. So what shape diagram? This dome shaped diagram. Okay. The anatomically setup of lungs in thorax in such that any change in the volume of the thoracic cavity will be reflected in the lung cavity, which is called pulmonary cavity. Okay, such an arrangement is essential for breathing, as we cannot directly alter the pulmonary volume. Respiration involves the following steps. One is breathing or pulmonary ventilation, by which atmospheric air is drawn in and CO2 rich alveolar air is released out. And the second one, diffusion of gases. Diffusion of gases means it varies two types. One is oxygen, the second one is CO2, carbon dioxide, across alveolar membrane. Diffusion of gases across alveolar membrane. Okay, and the third one, transport of gases by the blood, and 4, diffusion of O2 and CO2 between blood and tissues. 5, utilizing of oxygen by the cells or catabolic reactions and resultant release of CO2. Okay, so this is the diagrammatic view of human respiratory system, and this is a sectional view, okay, of the left lung. Here you can see, wait a minute, yeah, here you can see this is called our trachea, and this is called trachea, and this is called pharynx, and this is called epiglottis. Okay, and here you can see this is called bronchus. This stripe is called bronchus. Okay, and this chain is called cut end of rib. Okay, cut end of rib. This chain is called cut end of rib. And this is the lung, and this is, you already know, diaphragm, and this is pleural membrane. Here is included pleural fluid. Okay, so this is pleural membranes. Between of two type of pleural membranes, you can get pleural fluid. Okay, and this is, you can see it is alveoli. Okay, and it's bronchiole. It's called bronchiole. Okay, its portion, this portion, and this portion, and this portion is called bronchiole, and this small types of circle is called alveoli. Okay, yeah. Let's go mechanism of breathing. So when we inhale of oxygen, here you can see air entering lungs, right? In this portion air is entering, right? And then rib sternum is raised. Okay, when air entering into the lungs, then ribs and sternum are raised. Okay, these ribs and sternum are raised, and this small circle is called rib cage, and this is the volume of thorax increased. Okay, volume of thorax increased when air entering into the lungs, then volume of thorax is increased. Okay, yeah. And when we experience, when air expelled from lungs, then ribs and sternum return to the original position. Here you can see return to the original position. And when inspiration, then you can see ribs and sternum are raised, right? And when air entering into the lungs, and when air expelled from lungs, then ribs and sternum return to the original position. And what's going on then volume of thorax decreased, and when air entering into the lungs, then volume of thorax is increased, and when air expelled from lungs, then volume of thorax also decreased. Okay, in this time diaphragm relaxed and arched upwards. Diaphragm relaxed and arched upwards, and in inspiration time you can see diaphragm is contracted. Okay, contracted. Okay, so this is inhaling oxygen and this is exhaling carbon dioxide. Okay, when we inhale oxygen into our lungs, then you can see diagram moves downwards. Okay, and when we exhale to carbon dioxide from lungs, there you can see the diagram moves upwards. Okay, coming to the next point. Yeah, respiratory volumes and capacities. It's the most important point for NEET. Tidal volume, which is called TV. It is the short form of tidal volume, TV. Volume of air inspired or expired during a normal respiration, it is approx 500 ml. That is, a healthy man can inspire or expire approximately 6000 to 8000 ml of air per minute. It's also important. Okay, 6000 to 8000 ml of air per minute. And next, inspiratory reserve volume, IRV, additional volume of air. What is it? It is an additional volume of air a person can inspire by a forcible inspiration. The average is 2500 ml to 3000 ml. And the third one, expiratory reserve volume, ERV, additional volume of air a person can expire by a forcible expiration. The average is 1000 ml to 1100 ml. Okay. Okay. And the next one is residual volume, RV, volume of air remaining in the lungs even after a forcible expiration. The average is 1100 ml to 1000 200 ml. By adding up a few respiratory volumes described above, one can derive various pulmonary capacities which can be used in clinical diagnosis. And next, inspiratory capacity. Wait a minute. Yeah, inspiratory capacity. IC. Total volume of air a person can inspire after a normal expiration. This includes tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume, also called. Okay, and IC is equals to TB plus RV. I repeat it once again. What is inspiratory capacity or IC? Total volume of air a person can inspire after a normal expiration. This includes tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume. TB plus IRV. IC equals to TB plus IRV. And then expiratory capacity. AC. Total volume of air a person can expire after a normal inspiration. This includes tidal volume and expiratory reserve volumes. TB plus ERV. Okay, TB plus ERV. So EC equals to TB plus ERV. It was also important. IC equals to TB plus IRV and EC equals to TB plus ERV. Okay. Then functional residual capacity, FRC. Volume of air that will remain in the lungs after a normal expiration. This includes ERV plus RV. Okay, residual volume plus ERV. Okay, and then vital capacity. It's also important. Okay, it's also important. Vital capacity, BC. The maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after a forced expiration. This includes ERV, TB and IRV, or the maximum volume of air a person can breathe out after a forced inspiration. Okay. You can shortly describe these things, that the maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after a forced expiration. This includes ERV, TB and IRV. Okay, up to this. And the last one, total lung capacity. Total volume of air accumulated in the lungs at the end of a forced inspiration. This includes RV, ERV, TB and IRV, or vital capacity plus residual volume. So this total lung capacity includes RV, ERV, TB and IRV. These four things: RV, ERV, TB and IRV. Otherwise you can also call vital capacity plus residual volume. Okay. So is the figure, you know already, diagrammatic representation of exchange of gases at the alveolus and the body tissues with blood and transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Okay. So here you can see the diagram. This is alveolar sac. Okay, alveolus, and here inspired air. Okay, and alveolar air, oxygen equals to 104 mmHg, VCO2 equals to 40 mmHg. Okay, then O2 is passing away from this portion. Okay, now you can see this oxygenated blood passing through systematic arteries, right, carrying oxygenated blood. So what is this called? It's called oxygenated blood. Oxygenated blood passing through systematic arteries. Okay, and then the oxygenated blood go to the body tissues. Okay, body tissues or body cells. Okay, then PO2 equals to 95 mmHg and CO2 40 mmHg. And when expired air from body tissues, you can see it's carrying deoxygenated blood and passes through systematic veins. Okay, see the diagram, and it also passes through pulmonary artery, and then CO2 get into the alveolus, and from alveolus it's expired in air. Okay, then CO2 is 40 mmHg. Okay, understand? So what happens here? First of all, inspired air, which is O2, you know, O2, and this is go through alveolus, and then the oxygenated blood passes through systematic arteries and carrying oxygenated blood, and go through in body tissues. Okay, and from body tissues CO2 come from systematic veins and then go to pulmonary artery, and after going to pulmonary artery, it also passes through alveolus and expired in air. Okay, so alveoli are the primary sites of exchange of gases. Let me put highlighter. Yeah, exchange of gases also occur between blood and tissues. Okay, exchange of gases also occur between blood and tissues. O2 and CO2 are exchanged in these sites by simple diffusion, mainly based on pressure and concentration gradient. Solubility of the gases as well as the thickness of the membranes involved in diffusion are also some important factors that can affect the rate of diffusion. A gradient is present for CO2 in the opposite direction, that is from tissues to blood and blood to alveoli. As the solubility of CO2 is 20 to 25 times higher than that of oxygen, and the amount of the CO2 that can diffuse through the diffusion membrane per unit difference in partial pressure is much higher compared to that of oxygen. The diffusion membrane is made up of three major layers, namely the thin squamous epithelium of alveoli, the endothelium of alveolar capillaries, and the basement substance in between them. Okay, so here three major layers made up the diffusion membrane. Okay, and what is it? First of all, there's a thin squamous epithelium of alveoli, the endothelium of alveolar capillaries, and the basement substances in between them. Okay, however, its total thickness is much less than a millimeter. Therefore, all the factors in our body are favorable for diffusion of O2 from alveoli to tissues and that of CO2 from tissues to alveoli. Okay, now here you can see a diagram of a section of an alveolus with a pulmonary capillary. So air also from inhale and exhale from alveolar cavity. Then what happened when air enter into the alveolar cavity? Then squamous of and it's called its layer also called uncelled thick layer. So it is called squamous epithelium of alveolar wall. So what is called squamous epithelium of alveolar wall. Okay, and this is the here you can see yellow pigment. So it's called basement substance. Okay, and it's the endothelium of blood capillary, and this is red blood cells, and this is blood capillary. Okay. Red blood cell is coming from this portion and get out from this portion. Okay, and air from air also get from same portion of alveolar cavity. Okay, so thank you for everyone, and please like and subscribe to my channel Expert Guide. I will give you a better guide to my upcoming next video. So please guys, like and subscribe to my channel, and thank you.